Good evening, Rabbi Eisenberg. How are you?
Yeah, good evening, David. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. I love it how we always say good evening to one another as if we haven't already done it just a minute ago behind stage.
Well, all right, but it's we got to make it look real, right? This is a
Authentic.
one take podcast, as they call it. Have you heard that?
It's an authentic slice of Yiddishkeit on a Sunday night. Right.
How are we
So
doing? Are people do you see people coming in?
I can see people. I can see about 7 people, and it's rising at the moment. So that's fine.
Well, very good.
Okay, so last week's topic was forgiveness, and forgiveness is basically something which, in some ways, has a little bit of a negative connotation because to ask for forgiveness, you've already done something wrong, technically. Right. This week we're going to talk about something which hopefully has more of a positive connotation because when we talk about New Year's and secular New Year's, I think one of the things that very often happens over in the run up to New Year is that in the secular world, that time of the year is one of indulgence. So you're going to have more than just your average Yom Tov meal, if you like. And for a few days, people really sort of tend to hammer it, and then by the time New Year comes around, people are in that frame of mind where they are, I'm not saying disgusted with themselves, but they're fed up with the way that things are. And with that new year are new goals that they set themselves, usually to do with more, I'd say, physical things. So very typically, we used the example, didn't we, on the poster of joining a gym in January. So typically speaking, the membership of any average gym tends to swell in the first 2 weeks of January, with people that you don't normally see by the first week in February. I don't know if this is true because I'm normally gone by the end of January. But a lot of people do this, and a lot of people do try and make those small changes. And I suppose with us, we have a very different focus during New Year. It's not necessarily one of indulgence, but the word that you keep getting, that you hear getting used the whole time around Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is reflection. It's a time for considering what it is that we've been through and where it is, hopefully, that we want to be in the year to come. And when you stand there clapping your al-Khaitz, really, all those negative things that you are asking forgiveness for is really a very good way of planning not to do them in the year ahead as well, because your mind, you are forced to think about it. So it's a very, very different take on the classic New Year's resolution, isn't it?
Yeah, quite. I think also the idea of the resolutions comes not only from the al-Khaik, but in the Musa world very much. There was always the discussion of what's known as Kabbalahs, not like Kabbalah as in the mystical side, but lekabel is to accept upon yourself. So Kabbalahs will be to accept something upon yourself. Hi, good evening, Ian. Just seen him in my office, and now he's on this. So Kabbalahs to accept upon yourself something, to do something for next year that you haven't done. And it's important to realize that God looks at you, or the way many of the Musa greats put it is, when God says, I want to see improvement next year. You see, next year's not going to be the same as last year. So God says, oh yeah? So what's going to be different? I don't know, but just next year's not going to be the same as this year. So, but do you have any idea why? No, I just don't want it to be the same. So I know many people that were having this discussion. This came up a lot, I think, in March and April, when I was sort of looking on LinkedIn and other social media. Many people were writing, we're going to change the ways, and now I get to spend more time with my kids, and from now on, I'm always going to do homework with my kids. How many of those people that promised that they would do more homework with their kids from lockdown? I learned now how wonderful it is to be studying with my kids. From now on, every night I'm going to do homework with my kids. How many people did you hear saying that? And how many people have actually kept up with that?
So
people that haven't.
it very quickly turned to, I can't wait till someone else has to do homework.
I can't wait till I love homeschooling. I love get my kids out of this place. That's what it was.
No, it doesn't. And so this week you have got a lot of parents that have sent their kids back to school for the first time in perhaps 6 months, which is a huge thing. And the houses, I'm told, there's a general sign of relief as parents start to get their time back. But it also everywhere it looks a lot emptier without these people running around.
Yeah.
But one thing that I saw actually on LinkedIn was a friend of mine posted on there how he was upset that he had a tear in his eye as he sort of said goodbye to his kid. His kid has gone for his first day in school, and he's more upset this year because they've just spent 5 or 6 months together at home. And they've had such fantastic time, and he's sad that he's now going to be losing this. And I think my advice to him was at the time, yes, it's sad to be losing it, but you don't need to lose it permanently. So you can take yes, we all know it's not possible now to spend 24/7 with our kids. And neither is it good for their development to do that either.
Or for us, actually. I felt very, I'm sure you did also. I felt very torn in 5 months between work for the shul, watching my kids at home, making sure and ensuring that they have everything that they need. And, it was a very difficult time to try to juggle all those roles. And I'm sure many people who were working struggle tremendously. So if you're on furlough, that's great. So you got to take care of your kids and you got paid and almost everything and it sort of worked out. But if you weren't on furlough and you were working, but you had all your kids home and you had to try to make everything work, it was a real struggle.
And there's a very weird sort of COVID 2020 feeling of guilt that goes along with that, because something is suffering. So when you're at home and if you're giving all your time to your family, then that's great. If it's a planned holiday, then that's beautiful. But if you find yourself at home because you've got no choice, for me anyway, I felt very guilty that I could be doing more. I could be doing something, but it wasn't possible to do it. But what I said to this chat was, look, this doesn't need to be lost forever. This is now your opportunity to take that good feeling that you get from spending more time with your kids, and to make sure that you make sure that that's now built into part of your routine, whether it's a daily routine or a weekly routine, just to get into it, because it's so. The reasons why New Year's resolutions very often don't stick is because we give up on them too quickly, because it's all too easy to do to slip into sort of normal routine again.
And that's true. And I think, the idea, even in Yiddishkeit, there's an idea, I heard Rabbi Katz speak about this, I've heard other people speak about this also, that in every situation you have that initial burst of inspiration, and then you come back down from that burst of inspiration. And then it means working on it, making it your own. So when the Jewish people left, so just to give sort of like a Jewish perspective on this, he speaks about when the Jewish people left Egypt, there was a tremendous burst of inspiration. They had seen all these miracles, things were amazing. They're going up, up and up, and then they see the splitting of the sea, and they come out on the other side of the sea, and things are amazing. But then right after that, actually where they end up is the desert. And the desert is not only a physical desert, but spiritually also there was a desert there. They felt suddenly an emptiness. There was, now what? And the real gain is not during that time of inspiration. I'll give you another example in relationships. You meet someone, especially when you meet a girl, and early on in your relationship, everything's amazing. The early on when things really click, and you act like she's the most amazing girl, and she's beautiful, and she makes me laugh, and she makes all these things that you say until you stall, and things sort of like take a dip, and now you're like, well, it was more exciting 3 months ago. This has gotten a little bit normal. It's sort of normalized, and it's not as exciting as it was. And at that point, you say, it allows you to see, yes, but you know what? What the reason God has done it is because you can see what is achievable. I've given you that original burst of inspiration to see, you know what, I can do this if I wanted to. Now you need to own it. I'm not going to give it to you on a platter. And it's the truth. That's the truth of almost anything that we're going to do.
You need to keep working at it.
Yeah, and you know, that's what we were saying before about the gym. So it's very easy in January, the first week or two, you say, I'm going to lose weight. And you go into the gym for 4 or 5 times a week, and even 3 times a week if you can't make it that many. And you go and you run and you're lifting weights, and you come home and you're eating only kale and salad and baby spinach, and you're feeling so good about yourself. And like 3 weeks in, you're like, all right, I've had enough of this. I'm having a chocolate bar. And then you have your chocolate bar and you're like, you know what? I'm feeling too heavy today to go to the gym. I'm not going to go to the gym. And then tomorrow you say, you know what? I missed the gym yesterday. It didn't kill me. I won't go to the gym today either. And suddenly you slip out of it. And the truth is, for those 2 weeks, it's really, really easy. The real, oh, hi, Sheila. Thanks for joining.
Well,
the real growth is, or the real growth comes when it gets hard and you make it part of your routine. And I think the other thing that I would say, going back to what this fellow said, you know, and maybe trying to make this part of what we need to do for the next year, is he had this tremendous amount of time with his children that he was able to spend. And now he's like, I'm not going to be able to spend any time. And the problem is, instead, he might either say, whoa, I can't spend as much time as I was during COVID, so it's all worthless. There's no point in spending time once a week is not, it's hardly the same thing as what I had during COVID, where every night for half an hour we sat on the couch and read books together. But coming back into normal life, that's what's going to have to be. You're going to say, you know what? Friday night after my Shabbos meal, we'll sit together on the couch and we'll read books together. Tuesday night's a good night. I don't have anything to do on Tuesday night. I got no shulbas. I got no anything. I got no meetings. I got no phone calls. I got no work. Tuesday night. But you make it part of your schedule. You got to sort of nail it down in a way that makes it doable, and that makes a part that creates, you need to make a part of your routine week in, week out. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
They say, I think, that the things that tend to stick are things that you repeat often enough till they actually become a habit. And
That's
then,
right.
and by then you're in autopilot and you're used to doing it.
Yeah.
When it comes to work, I think we're all tremendously good at doing the same things that we need to do every day without necessarily complaining about it. You just build it into part of your routine because it becomes a habit. But in a personal life, sometimes it's easier to drop those. It's easier to lose sight of your own personal goals if you're busy with everybody else's goals. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So I think really the first thing that you need to discuss before you even get to making goals stick is, what are your goals? You know, you start with that. And then the truth, and the other thing is then really, and this is when the Mussar greats speak about this, they speak a lot about these Kabbalos. They say, make sure you don't take on 10 different things. Because you know what? If you're going to take on 10 different things, most of them are going to falter, and probably all of them are going to falter. Rather take on one thing that you know is going to become, or at maximum 2 things that are doable, that can become part of your routine, rather than 10 things where none of them will end up becoming part of your routine. And so many times, I mean, you ask people that have been through this gym thing, they've not been through it 1 year. You can ask them 10 years in a row, they've joined the gym in January and left the gym in February. And you need to say to yourself, if I've done this 5 years in a row and it's never worked, something's wrong. Then I need to figure out another system that's going to make me want to join the gym or go again. So it might just be as simple as saying, I will join the gym with a friend and we're going together. And this way, when I'm not in the mood, he'll pick me up. And when he's not in the mood, then I'll pick him up. And, you know, that might not get you all the way through to December, but if it gets you through to March, you've done a better job already, because you didn't back out in the end of January. You've made another month and a half. So that's better.
So when we look at the question of what is the Jewish equivalent of joining a gym in January, one of the sort of things you used to hear an awful lot about, at least I remember when I was a kid, asking, because you overhear these things, and people used to use the phrase a 3-time-a-year. And you wanted to know, what is a 3-time-a-year? And it was a very classically defined Jewish stereotype at the time. Sadly, I don't think it is as much of a stereotype as it used to be, because I think statistically speaking, that has fallen by the wayside a little bit, and there aren't that many people. So I think so to define it, there were people who identified traditionally as Jewish and would always make sure that they were in shul on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur particularly, and that was their sort of three times of the year that they would go, and I think I was listening to something from the chief rabbi. The statistics of the number of people that a number of our children or our grandchildren, depending on what generation you're from, who now see the same importance as their grandparents of actually making it to shul, at least on those auspicious occasions, are few and far between. We're losing that battle. Now this year in the midst of Corona, because it's easy to sometimes think that in part it's because we can come to shul under some restrictions, it's gone, but it's not. We're still coping with it, and it still needs a lot of different planning. But with Corona, that's sort of another blow that the typical sort of 3 times a year person has taken. But you tend to, traditionally, I think we tend to sort of fill all our, if you are not a regular shul goer, you're filling all your regular shul going into what is a 2 or 3 week period which begins with Rosh Hashanah and ends after Simchas Torah, because and that's why we found it very difficult to do Shabbat UK so quickly after Simchas Torah, because we're not sick of each other, but we'd seen a lot of each other over a 2 week period. So it's interesting that really was the equivalent of joining the gym, wasn't it? It was cramming in all your devotion into sort of three occasions.
It is, but I think it's slightly different, because I think the people that join the gym, their plan is to join the gym for the entire year. They join the gym in January, not saying themselves, I want to join the gym in January and leave it by February. They want to join the gym in January and they want to stick it through all the way through to December, that next year, come Christmas and come New Year, they'll have a thinner themselves or feel better about themselves. They won't have to feel this. Sadly, they just don't make it past whatever pine in January, February it is. The sad thing about the 3 times a year Jews that still exist in our shul, but to a lesser extent, is that their plan a priori, their plan right from the start is, I'm only coming for this time period, and then I say goodbye to shul for the next year. I'm not really planning on coming back to shul for another year, unless chas v'shalom there's a bereavement, and then it depends on how traditional the person is, whether they will or whether they won't decide to say Kaddish for Shiva, for maybe even the Shloshim. Some did it. We had people in shul that were like 3 times a year that came 6 months. And after 6 months, they said, I've done 6 months. I'm done. Yeah, I said, but it's 11 months. They're like, 6 is half. I've done half. That's good enough. Better than nothing. And you just got to take it. So it is sad. I think the other thing that, just speaking about the 3 times a year is I spoke to Modi Spitzer on Friday night. And he was saying, for example, that in Berry, a lot of the 3 times a year people that normally came are not coming this year. And I met with Ian today, and with Adam Shoger, with the Chassan and with Adam Shoger, and together we were looking through the lists and how many davenings we need and how many people are coming, and our numbers aren't massive either. Okay, we true, we don't have that much capacity, but if you go through all the people that are coming, people are
being more cautious.
Yeah, but a lot of the 3 times a year people are not coming this year. And the worry is that if people have been coming for 3 times a year and then they've said, it's always been, I'll come Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, come what may, I'll be there, right? And they've done that for 50 years. And in year 51, which is the COVID year, they don't go. And by the end of next year, they say to themselves, you know what? Didn't go to shul, nothing happened, nothing worse should happen. This is an old relic. I never really enjoyed the rabbi's speech. I never really enjoyed the chazan singing.
Can't believe anyone would ever say that about your speech.
God forbid. Yeah. But, you know what I mean? So you have the worry is not on the worry, and I believe this is a very great worry, is not so much this year. The worry is really looking forward. Is this the beginning of a very, very slippery slope for 3-time-a-year Jews, where they'll say, I didn't come this year in 2020, nothing happened, and I'm not planning on coming in 2021. Like many people thought they could never work from at home, and have now realized, many businesses have realized, wait, we could have our people working from at home. And sometimes they've even seen they've had greater productivity when their members have worked at home than when they've worked in the office.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's been a new focus. I just hope this doesn't become the new focus. And people say, you know what? I lost weight last year without going to the gym. Why should I take a gym membership in 2021?
So I know one of the things that gyms are doing in order to, and it's a challenge, it really is, because once you encourage your customer base to come back and to use the gym, to use that analogy again,
yes,
you've got to continue making them feel safe, and you've got to make it convenient for them, and you've got to make it relevant to them, and you've got to make it cheap enough for them, and all these different sort of, this Venn diagram where the bits that overlap in the middle is that person going to the gym. I think with Shul, we now have that new challenge, don't we? It's how do we make people feel safe enough that they can come back? Mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, how do we engage them both virtually, sort of in ways like we're doing tonight, and various different events that go on during the year. These changes aren't gone, but they're also, they're also things that we're going to have to continue using in order to keep engaging people. Because what we've learned is that, yes, whilst people can't get to Shul, there is some engagement going on. People still value very much that connection with their kehillah, and I think I think Jewish people particularly, we're very social animals. We like to interact with our peers and so on. And Shul was just one of those many, on a social level, one of those many touch points. But people need it. People need it.
Well, I think this is a good example of the kind of thing. So we'll have to see how this continues. But I would have thought that even after Shul comes back together again, that this idea of like a Sunday Night Live might still continue, because people are finding a new way of engaging with the Shul. And I think the reason we started the Sunday Night Live was because we felt, you know what, the Shul was doing Zoom shiurim, but nobody was coming, and the Shul was doing Zoom davening, and nobody was coming. And at one point or another, we needed to get to something and say, like, we need to find, like you said, we need to reinvent ourselves. Gyms have to reinvent themselves now also. They're having a very hard time because a lot of people, I see more people running on the streets than I've ever seen before. Yeah. And a lot of gyms, a lot of people are saying, you know what? If I can run on the street, why do I need a gym? Why am I paying £20 a month to use their treadmill when Barry New Road is available for free anytime I want it?
So our equivalent of that is the garden minion. There's still a lot. Yeah, I had one conversation with a member. We were talking about kids, the importance of trying to get kids back into Shul as early as we possibly can. And he said that for the meantime, he has no intention of coming back until he can bring his kids, because he can take his kids to this garden minion that's going on across the road. It's very convenient for him, and so on, and that will continue. The question is, though, being cynical, whether that's going to feel as comfortable and as nice in mid-December when you're freezing your kishkas off in somebody's garden under a marquee. It's not necessarily.
People are saying the same thing with gyms. It's a lot of fun to run down the street in August, but I don't know if in November or December, when it's raining and it's horrible out and it's freezing, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, now I remember why I joined the gym. Yeah, it's not as geschmack on Barry New Road anymore.
So one of the comments that's come in, it's either Esther or it could also be Modi, but the gyms and diets have a very tangible, visible results. Spiritual connection is much harder to quantify and achieve. It's that old question of you whilst you were saying it before, when you're saying people may not come to Shul for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur this year and realize that nothing bad has happened to them and it's not really changed anything. But it's that old adage, isn't it, that like religion would be much easier to instill and to have enthusiasm for if you knew that the minute you did something wrong, that sort of cartoon bolt of lightning is going to come down and get you straight away. You know when you've done something bad.
Yeah.
But likewise, you know, a lot of the good that we do or we try to do, you don't see tangible results straight away. It doesn't. It's a very long. Sometimes it's a very long-term payoff.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, but that's true in everything. You know, we invest in relationships, even in work relationships. I know people that have invested tremendously in certain work relationships, and sometimes it's paid off, and sometimes it hasn't paid off. Sometimes you thought. How many times have you thought that this guy will be your client? This is going to be the client that I'm going to make fortunes on. And you've wined him and you've dined him and you sent him every deal his way. And in the end, he just stabs you in the back and walks on to the next estate agent. And you're like, why did I waste so much time and effort on this guy when really he just wasn't worth the effort? And I think the truth is within it all of life is like that. Life happens in a way where we don't always see our tangible results. And I think what we need to do is we need to decide what is important to me, and whether it has a tangible result or not, whether I can see that result or not, it's important enough that I'm willing to invest in that, knowing that this is the right thing to do and this is what I want to do. And I think, as Esther says, yeah, when you diet, I must tell you, I've been on diets a few times. I've just now during Corona, I've lost a bit of weight, or quite a bit of weight.
I was going to say.
But I tried diets. You know, I did a diet about 8 years ago when I came to shul. I remember Will Kintish saying to me that he remembers some other Rabbonim as he was sitting on the side. You know where he sits on the side where your grandfather. Says I remember Rabbonim moving away further and further away from the pulpit as his stomach got wider and wider. And don't let that happen to you. And I remember I was a year and a half into my rabbinate. I was sitting there and I felt my ribs boring into my stomach. And I came home and I said to my wife, that's it. We need to do something. I need to do something about this because I've just gotten too heavy and I'm realizing that I'm getting there. And, you know, then sometimes, so then that time I dieted and it went really, really well. And then another time I dieted and I went nothing. And when you work on something, even on a diet, if you diet for 2 or 3 weeks and in those 2 or 3 weeks you've lost 1 pound, you just throw in the towel. You're like,
you get upset. You don't really, you know. And again, okay, to use that analogy, we all came to shul on Rosh Hashanah last year. We all came to shul on Yom Kippur, and then we had a year that no one planned for or expected.
Yeah.
You could use, if you wanted to be cynical, you could say, look, I went last year and Davin like a good boy.
Yeah.
And what did I get? I got 3 months off work, but no panos. You know, there were people that had some very serious problems this year. And I think that we're not even beginning to see the beginning of the
just
effect.
The tip of the iceberg.
Completely. But you could, if you wanted to, look back at that. Just going to take a little side road, a little diversion here. Clive Moss Barkley always asks the most challenging of questions. He's challenging us here. Zoom davening on Friday night is still popular, makes people feel connected. Why is it stopping this week?
I don't see. I mean, we could do it every week. I mean, it doesn't cost us anything. We're davening anyway. So if there's a big will, I don't know how many people, Clyde, maybe you can write in another comment, but how many people were at the Zoom Kabbalat Shabbat last week? Or, I mean, it's really irrelevant because we're not really putting on anything special.
We're doing what we're doing anyway, right?
Well, we know what we're doing anyway. We just stopped before Boy B'Shalom, and my son takes Adam, the Chazan Kaplan's phone out of the room, turns it on, puts it in my office, leaves it there, and then he picks it up again Motzei Shabbos.
So we can still do it even in the winter as well. There's no issues in terms of timing, etc. No,
there'll be issues in terms of timing, but at the moment, well, let's see where we at. Yeah, the moment. So I'll have to see what the time is going to be like. Yeah, we might actually have an issue. Yeah, we'll have to see what we're going to do with that. There'll be an issue because after a certain point in time, you cannot turn off the phones and you cannot move them, etc. So yeah, you will have an issue. I get that. So that's the answer.
I think the answer is that we will continue doing it for as long as we can, and we'll try and find ways of doing it. We know that. I mean, I know one person in particular who finds it very, very important. They can't get to shul at the moment, and they need those sort of things.
Yeah.
From one Moss Barkley to just a Barkley.
They are cousins, you know.
No, sorry.
They are cousins, you know. They spell the name Barkley differently.
I know. Rodney has commented the destruction of the second base in Mikdash brought about the reinvention of ritual in Judaism. We moved away from sacrifices to prayer, to synagogue. Could Corona bring about another reinvention, e.g., shorter services? Because at the moment we've curtailed certain things, haven't we?
Yes.
In terms of making starting later and so on. Do you think that's here to stay?
It might be. It might be here to stay. Look, if you know, when Corona goes away and people say, I don't understand, you did it in 2 hours and 5 minutes during Corona, what takes 2.5 hours now, we might have to say, you know what, the rabbi didn't do a summary of the parasha and we're going to scrap that. And the kids didn't sing Anim Zmiris and we're going to scrap that. And we made very, very short Mishaberes and we're going to scrap that. And we didn't do any Hosafas and we're going to scrap that. And, you know, I'm still speaking and the Chazan's still singing, but when we take on the Sefer Torah, we're much, much quicker in doing that. And we put back the Sefer Torah much quicker in doing that because people can't sing along. So there's no point in the Chazan droning on and then nobody being able to join him for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there are ways of making it shorter. But, you know, if that is the will of everyone, I think when you say shorter services, it doesn't mean I'm not willing to cut out any of the davening, you know, as such. You know, certain shuls have cut out davening. And I think when we started the first 2 or 3 weeks, the first 2 weeks, we started with Shochenad.
Yeah.
And really, for me, didn't work because I showed up in shul at 9:40 and everyone's talking and everyone's conversing and suddenly the Chazan goes, Shochenad, Maram. And you're like, what? That came out of nowhere. That just didn't make any sense. Whereas now what we have is basically shul starts at 9:45, but anybody wants to come for Psukkah de Zimra, and there are 2 people saying Kaddish, that's the Chazan and Weisglas, Stephen Weisglas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they're both coming. They're both coming early, and there's enough people coming with them, and then we say brachas and we say the 2 Kaddishes, and then everybody sits down, and we don't have anybody leading the services for Psukkah de Zimra. But at least when people walk in, it feels like the service has started already. So people don't walk in all talking to each other and suddenly there's Shochenad because that's just starting in the middle. But yeah, I you know what Rodney's saying, I take that on board, that there might have to be this change. And I'm sure people will say, if we can do it during Corona, why not do it after Corona? Yeah. But I don't know if that's sort of a reinvention of Judaism as opposed to making it slightly more convenient for people. I think it's not as drastic as Rodney says, but yeah.
Some people say that the standard of our kiddushim has actually gone up now that we don't have a kiddush. What would you say? No, very controversial. Let's not talk about it.
Very controversial.
Right.
What I would say is that I sent out an email today though, and we're going to try and see if we can create some form of a kiddush on Sukkot, because there are many people in our shul that do not have a Sukkah at home.
Yeah.
And that we should try to create a lot of the, I know Yehuda Feigelman from State Fair called me, but I know that a lot of the bakeries now make individual cakes that come wrapped in plastic. And so people can come inside, you take it, we won't do tots because I think tots is too complicated. There's too much cross-contamination and saliva and all things going on. That's quite dangerous considering Corona. But you can have cakes, so people will take their own cake, come inside the sukkah, make a bracha, have the cake, and we'll have sort of like we'll have 2 entrances, 1 entrance, 1 exit, and people come in, eat a little bit, go back out, but at least people will be able to have something. It won't be exciting, but it's better than nothing. At least people can say they had food in the sukkah on Sukkot.
So just going to skip.
Last question is important. Let's get to that bottom question over there.
We're going to get to that in a second, but I'm just going to go to Clive's middle bits. Clive was in shul for the first time in 6 months. Mazel tov, welcome back.
It was really good seeing him.
And the week before was watched by more than 30, so good.
That's a lot of people. Yeah.
That's a good level of. You know what? I'd argue even if you've got sort of 10 people, it's enough to show you that people want. Sheila Morris has commented, you have to be motivated, positive, and focused on everything you do, whether it's diet, gym, or religion.
That's true.
Which is
I guess, but the point that Esther was making is if you have a slight amount of motivation and you start seeing results, then your motivation starts going up. and you don't always see those results in religion as you can see them in other things. Although I did hear an amazing story. Somebody told me this story actually happened in Whitefield. There was an individual that came to shul, and he was looking quite depressed. And one of the Whitefield Kollel came over to him and said to him, "Why do you look so depressed?" And he said, "I'm feeling very lonely. My wife's passed away. I'm saying Kantra now. I'm just being so lonely. I wish I had somebody, I could meet somebody and have some companionship." And the fellow said to him, "Well, maybe try davening." Okay. So he said, "Okay, let's and where should I daven?" And he showed him in davening exactly where he should daven. And lo and behold, the fellow davened that night Shemona Esrei. He came, he left. He says, "I feel a lot better." He came home. He had a message on his answer phone from a woman who had met a year before, who said, "I know you're on your own now. I'm also been on my own for a while. Why don't we meet up for coffee?" And he ended up marrying that woman. And that fellow became frum from that one story.
And that's why I don't come to shul as often as I should. Because my wife doesn't want me to get these calls from other women.
Get that.
So let's have a look. Rodney makes a really good point here. That 30 equals 30 families potentially. It could be up to like 100 people who are all
going back to what Clive was saying.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
So the question is to make it work with halacha. So maybe we'll just have to start earlier. Instead of start. And I think the timings often have been, and I'm going to have the conversation with Ian, but the timing has often been worked around people working. And so we know that people work, and so that in order to be able to give them the longest day they can have on a Friday and still give them enough time to come to shul, we make shul as late as possible. Yeah. But if it means 30 people can join us for Zoom, then maybe we should be davening 20 minutes earlier. And, it's for those people who are working and have to leave work slightly earlier to help those 30 people. That, again, it's a conversation that we need to have. It's a good point to be brought up.
It's a great point, and it's very timely, because right now is I think we're going into a period of a couple of weeks where there's going to be a lot of intense meetings and final arrangements for Yom Tov, and planning also going into winter what we're going to do, because we now need to start talking about what happens to midweek mincha.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I was discussing with Ian today. Midweek mincha is hard enough anyway in the winter because it's bang in the middle of the day. However, I think the numbers are bolstered by non-members during the week. Now, at the moment, we're members only.
Yeah.
So, are we able?
Yeah, we discussed it today at the meeting.
The week? Yes. Okay. Non-members, you're able to come to allow us to have a minyan. And then say on Shabbos, "I'm sorry, no, you're not welcome." So it'll be very difficult to do that. So there are lots of discussions that are going on at the moment. Clive, can we have a special Zoom Kol Nidre service for those not coming to shul?
The answer to that question is yes. We've already discussed timings for that. And what's going to happen is we're going to be having mincha at 2:30, as we always do on Erev Yom Kippur. After mincha, I will stay behind with the chazan. The chazan will sing Kol Nidre on Zoom, and then we will do a Zoom Yizkor service as well for those who cannot come for Yizkor on Yom Kippur. Maybe even I'll speak about the giving to the different. We always have the Yom Kippur appeal. So I might make a pitch for the appeal as well at that point, and that will be the time we're going to be having the Yom Kippur Zoom Kol Nidre service. But absolutely, the Zoom Kol Nidre service is already, it's in the diary, it's in the schedule, and it will be happening with those timings in mind.
So, and I'm going to try and get involved with that as well to make sure that actually, when you do that, we may even have it go to our YouTube so that people who are not there right at that second can still watch it maybe half an hour later or whatever it may be.
Okay.
Pull that out. That would be good. Right. Clive has also asked, commented, I should say, the shul sukkah should be reserved for our members who do not have their own sukkah, and that absolutely is the priority, because those who have their own.
But the problem will be as follows. I mean, this will be, but it will still only be for that kiddush and for that kichel that you can have after davening. It won't be for more than that. We cannot have people coming and eating meals actually in the sukkah because of Corona. It's just something that we can't do. I know in the past we've had the discussion, and we did say to a few people, if you want to come and eat in the sukkah, you're welcome. You let yourself in through the gate with your telephone number. You come around, park your car, come inside the sukkah and eat anytime you want to. and last year, I think, or 2 years ago, we had friends and we didn't have room for them, but we made a barbecue in the car park of the shul, and we ate in the shul sukkah, which was absolutely fine. But that was last year. That's not going to happen this year. So I think we're really going to have to limit it only to the day when, the days when people come to daven. And in general, on Yom Tov, we're only going to be having members anyway because we won't have the capacity for non-members. We've lost our way a little bit in our conversation, though. Yeah.
Sorry?
We've lost our way a little bit on conversation.
Okay, well, we're gonna get back to that in a second. Esther has also asked, why don't you make a rota between the Zoomers in the winter? We're going to find some sort of a solution that works. Going back then to our original premise, if you like, going back to the original question of resolutions and how to make them stick. What in Yiddishkeit are the typical resolutions? Are there certain things that we should be focusing on more this year more than others? And, when you look at setting targets in a workplace, for instance, you're always told that the target should be something that stretches the person, but it should be achievable. Right. Don't set targets for yourself or for other people that are way beyond their capabilities, because if they fail, then it's not good for morale. So from a Jewish perspective,
Jewish perspective is interesting. I think giving or telling people what they should or shouldn't be doing many times is counterproductive. So I think a business often has their direction that they want to go in. So we want to get X amount of clients, or make so and so many sales, or get our name out to so and so many people, or have so and so many new connections with or new people that we've got on our books. You can actually quantify it. In religion, everybody really is running a different business, so to speak. So what's right for me and what works for me in my Yiddishkeit might not work for you, and what works for you might not work for me or for Rodney or for Clive. Everybody will have their things that they need to improve upon. So to sort of say, broadly, generally speaking, we can always say, we can always be very, very sort of like cliche and say, people should come to davening more, people should mean they're davening more, people should do less averas, should do more mitzvahs and be nicer to everybody else. Done, right? It's very easy to say that, but I think part of what makes targets important is if you're going to have a very undefined target, then it's very hard even to measure whether anybody's lived up to the target or not. So if your target is 10 more sales by the end.
Sharon's asking if we're still live. We're still live, Sharon.
No, we're not live. Of course not. Why? Yeah. Yeah. You have to, the targets, the targets has to be very, you know probably better than I do as running something. You have to have you have to have a defined target. So you can say, we want to make 10 more sales between now and the end of December. Right. That makes sense. That's a defined target. But if you say, we want to have more sales by until the end of December. So what is that? 1 sale, 3 sales, 25 sales? When you say more, you've not defined it. So within Yiddishkeit, we say you definitely need to have very defined targets. So you want to say, I want to daven more. No, that's no good. Don't say I want to daven more, because you'll daven once more and you've reached your target. That's not a very good target. Rather, you want to say, you know what? From now on, I will be coming to shul every Wednesday, and it could be Wednesday Mincha Maariv. It doesn't have to be Shacharis. And again, that's a very male-orientated thing. We can give targets for women as well. I'm just giving that as an example. But let's say
I wouldn't dare set targets for women.
Why not?
Can you imagine the complaints I'll get? All
right, fine. We won't set targets for women. I'm sure they can set their own targets. But let's say, but if a guy says, I'll come to davening more often, that's not much of a target. Who knows what you mean? But if you say, no, I will come to davening once a week, and that weeknight's going to be Wednesday every week. Fine, you've set yourself a target. Then you can look back after 6 weeks and say, am I coming on Wednesday nights? And sometimes you'll see, actually, Wednesday night's my busiest night of the week. Why in the world did I choose Wednesday night as the night that I'm going to come? Actually, Tuesday is a much better night than Wednesday. Well, then redefine your target and say, you know what? The target wasn't Wednesday night. The target was to come more often to shul, and I chose Wednesday night as the example of what I'm going to do to make it work. But Wednesday night's not workable, so let's make it Tuesday. and then look again after 6 weeks, and you might see, hey, you know what? I changed my target from Wednesday to Tuesday. It's the same target, but just slightly changed, and that works. So that could be a target. But again, it's a very, people say, well, the shul seems to constantly pick on come to shul more often. That seems to be
it's the easiest, it's the
low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, well, it's also one of those things where you can actually define it. So you're talking about setting targets in a business. They normally do it according to what they refer to in every industry as KPIs, so key performance indicators. So I know exactly how I did last month because I'm counting it. And one of the things that we don't do so well sometimes personally is to take personal count of what we do. I don't know how many people I was nice to last month, or how many people I was unwittingly not nice to. How many people did I go out my way to help, and how many people did I fail that particular month? And in the course of an average year, it's easy to get lost with those things. And I think actually that's one of the things that I love about our style of celebrating New Year, but Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is when you come to the davening, whether you've done that sin, we've got a sin for everybody in there. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you've done or not done. You're forced to think about the things you could have done in those situations. And the certain things that I hope you end up saying and think, well, I've definitely not done that, but I'm saying it anyway because it's part of davening. But it's there, it's prescribed, it's there. It's what we sing every year together. We go through it. And the Chazan, in his repetition as well, particularly, will go through the different ways in which our lives can very rapidly change if we don't get the decree that we're looking for. So you have, if you're looking for KPIs, you might not have that. We may not be writing down every good deed that we're doing, but we're told that somebody up there is writing that down.
Yeah.
And we get to read it out. We get to work through it in shul over a long period of time.
Yeah, but I think the problem with that, and I was discussing this with my wife, is the problem is that some people sit on Yom Kippur and all it is I've done this and I've done that and I've done this. And I remember once, I once got a booklet with all the Averis, like an Avera list, and you can it's a lengthened version of Vidui. And it was like, I went through the whole book and I had like two things on it, like, okay, I wasn't intimate with my mother-in-law. Like, that's the only one I could sort of like tick and say, that didn't happen, like good for you, but that's about it, but everything else had a tick in it. And you walk away from that booklet and you feel very, very distraught that whole list is sort of, didn't do this, didn't do this, didn't do this, didn't do this. There are too many things that you didn't do. And I think one of the things that we're really bad at is keeping track of the good things that we do.
Yeah.
We don't keep track of the things that we do. So we know, I must tell you that, if I know certain people that I might have hurt during the year, that were upset with me, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know how many people I've picked up with a phone call or with a smile or with a hello. I don't.
But you know what? We discuss this, don't we? As part of the executive and part of people that are involved with running the shul and you know what, in other organizations as well, even at work, where you tend to, the things that we focus and we discuss are the issues that need to be resolved, the problems that need solving, the person that's made a complaint, the person that's called to say, listen, this wasn't the way that I wanted it. I want it done differently. This is what I expect from you, and this is what you've given me. And there are those times where we need to do that. And what I'd say is, if you could, at this time of the year, and this is my random request to everybody, is that in this time of COVID, at the beginning of lockdown, we were tremendously good at showing Hakaras Hatov to people, particularly the NHS. So Thursday night, we were all out there clapping. Fantastic. And everybody was, thank you, NHS. And we were very, very grateful. We're grateful to all the supermarket workers. We were grateful to every last person that stocked the shelf with toilet paper. Funny things in life that we began to not take for granted anymore.
Yeah.
And we were much more caring. We reached out to people. We offered people help. We felt that we were at a time of great threat. And that somehow socially, and it's not just our community, but it's everybody. And actually, I was speaking to somebody in Israel at the moment who they'd called me all the way from Israel. They said, "Why are you interviewing that Rabbi Eisenberg again? I'm from Vienna. You never asked me a question, so you have regards from Ike Sandorfi." Okay.
How nice.
But he's trying to get back home to be with his family in Vienna, in Austria. Yeah. And he said to me that he's been stuck at home in Israel during lockdown. And at the moment, he feels that he needs to get home. He's had enough of Israel. And although, as much as he loves Israel and the atmosphere there, he said one thing that they were very, very good at was at the beginning of lockdown, they were tremendously good at celebrating the fact that they were the best in the world at keeping the lockdown. We had a very, very low number of infections.
They were phenomenal.
And almost, unheard of levels of death globally when you were to compare it. But now the numbers have rocketed because he feels that there are certain sections of society that have given up on the masks and they've given up on distancing. And more than that, what is causing him turmoil at the moment is politically, it's a tinderbox right there over there at the moment, and it's about to catch a light because they are talking about quarantining cities now. And the cities that they're looking at quarantining are Haredi cities and Arab cities. And it is threatening, these problems are threatening to split society in civil war. One of the things the Rabbanim in Israel are very, very caught up with at the moment is whether or not there was going to be a quarantine enforced over Yom Tov to stop people from going to shul, because they knew inevitably there would be crossover between households. So, these are people that he's trying to sort of move on and to find somewhere else to go. I forgot why I started the story in the first place. But it was
about being tremendously thankful to everybody. That's what you're saying.
No, so that was it. So it's about that dissipating sense of gratitude that we all had at the beginning of lockdown. Don't let that go. It is a shame that it's gone. And goodwill isn't there anymore. We're not as kind as we used to be 3 months ago.
But I think
so my request is if there was somebody that did something for you this year, pick up the phone before Rosh Hashanah and tell them thank you again.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way. But what I was talking about before also, yeah, I think it is very powerful. But I think the other thing that I was talking about, I remember Rabbi Pesach Krohn speaking about it many times, is he actually had a book which he called his Chesed book. And that was for him. That wasn't for other people. And he said every day he was going to do a kindness to an individual. Whatever it's going to be, not one day is going to pass by without a kindness to an individual. Whether it was crossing an old lady the road, or whether it was saying hello and giving a smile to somebody, or whether it was actually, what the worst thing is that can happen in shul. You ask somebody how they're doing, and they actually tell you the true answer. 10 minutes later, you're like, oh no, I just wanted him to say okay and to move on with life. And in the meantime, this guy's kept me there for 20 minutes. For you don't know what's happening to me here, and but that's real giving. It's very easy to say, David, you're right. Yeah, I'm all right. You're right. You're right. Okay, good. You feel so good about yourself. The people that say, well, actually, I'm not okay. And somebody else says, okay, what is it? And they're willing to listen to you. That's where the true giving is. The true giving isn't saying, all right to everybody. And everybody goes, all right. And that's it. So it's not only about being thankful to others. It's really about maybe taking stock. And this is maybe going back to what I think it was Sheila that mentioned. Or it was Esther really, saying spiritual connection is much harder to quantify, to achieve. You can create that quantification by quantifying it yourself. You can take the step and say, you know what, every day I'm going to be doing something nice for somebody else, whether it's picking up the phone to someone, whatever it might be, but I will do that, and then I will write it down in my notebook. Not because I'm trying to say, look how wonderful I am, because if you look back 6 months later and you see those things, it's beautiful. I think my wife often gets these ideas, although they don't last very long, but she had an idea once of a gratitude book. And we had like a few pages, like, Moshe is grateful for this, and Meir is grateful for that, and Rivki is grateful for that, And people were saying things like, my bed. When you're a little kid, you're really grateful for your bed. And I think as adults, you're not even grateful for it anymore. But the truth is, what I think.
If you were to read any self-help book at the moment, one of the key focuses is gratitude.
Yeah.
Because to be grateful for the things that we take for granted sometimes, if you can work gratitude into your life, then when I pick up the phone to you and say, look, I just want to let you know that one little thing that you did for me this year, which you thought was insignificant, made a great deal of difference to me. And I just wanted to say thank you. It makes them feel good. But don't tell me you don't feel good by making that call as well.
Excellent, right? Absolutely. I love doing that.
And I think that sometimes to have gratitude for the things that we almost don't feel that we need to say thank you for because they're part of every day. That's actually part of davening, isn't it? So when we begin davening every day, we start with brachas, which effectively are daily affirmations, but they're also daily expressions of gratitude. You wake up in the morning, you say, thank you, I woke up.
Thank you, woke up. Thank you, I can see. Thank you, I can stand up. Thank you, I can walk. Thank you that I, that the earth doesn't move and shake as I'm walking. Thank you for my shoes. Thank you for my clothes. I mean, these are all basics. Nobody wakes up in the morning, or almost nobody wakes up in the morning and says, thank God I got a shirt. I can't believe what it would be like without a shirt. But imagine if you didn't have a shirt and you'd have to go out and you have to get to work. The worst is, have you ever had that when you wake up in the morning and somehow, you didn't do the laundry the night before and you thought you were going to do it, and your wife thought that you maybe had another extra 1 or 2 shirts in your closet, and you thought, don't worry about it, I'll get it. And you open up your closet and then there are no shirts left. You're like,
all too often.
Pardon?
All too often.
Yeah. All too often. Yeah. What are we going to do now? Yeah. So and then suddenly you start. It's only when things go wrong that you go, you know what? Thank you so much for doing my laundry every other day, that when I open up my closet, there's actually a fresh shirt there.
Yeah.
And thank you, Hashem, for giving me a shirt to wear. Can you imagine waking up and not having a shirt to wear, having only 1 or 2 shirts? Baruch Hashem, I own more than that. So working that gratitude into your life, and again, quantifying it. If you could create even a book of gratitude, not up to other people, you can create a book of gratitude for yourself. I am grateful for, and every day put something new in that. And at the end of the year, if you say to yourself, I got 365 days or 354 days, however many you want to count, Jewish year, non-Jewish year, I got so many days left to Rosh Hashanah, and I'm going to write something different into that book every single day of the year. Imagine if you came before Rosh Hashanah 5781 with a book, or 5782, with a book of gratitude, with 365 things that you are grateful for.
Okay, well, here's a challenge. My digital challenge to you, Rabbi, this year.
Okay.
Is on LinkedIn, because I know you use LinkedIn.
I've stopped using it as much. But
if you can put one thing down a day on LinkedIn, because people share everything on Facebook, on LinkedIn. This is my challenge to all of you. If you can change your status at one point a day to say, today I am grateful for this, and just see what kind of reaction you get from other people. Because I think it will open up discussions on topics of things that people take for granted. And I think that I think gratitude, Clive, just to address some of the points in reverse order, isn't saying thank you the basis of our religion. Yehuda means to give thanks.
Yeah, very much so. So we are, thank you. And it was very much also part of what we spoke about last week in Bikurim, is that we're saying thank you to Hashem for everything that we've been given.
Looking at some of the other comments, Sharon Hood, sorry, I was at the Chief Rabbi's Neshama event. Apologies if this isn't relevant, but I guess this is the last Sunday Night Live before Yom Tov.
Next week.
Or we'll see what happens next week. May be busy, but let's see. May I ask if there will be a sheet produced to help us know which parts of the service to daven at home? So the answer to that is that yes, there is a lovely little box that is being prepared as we speak. There is one available for each member, and in there are some little gifts from the shul. There's some communication from the rabbi, also from the executive, and in there as well, Ian is going to put the Machzor guide that accompanies that gives you the different page numbers in all the different machzorim. So the same one that we have in shul that we normally run every year, you will have a version of that to use at home.
It's more than that. I think what Sharon's actually asking is, because a lot of the bits and pieces and davening on Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur will be in the repetition of the Amidah, which bits of that can she say or can she not say, or which should she say or should she not say? I had a conversation with somebody else already this week about it, and I'm going to hopefully putting together a written sheet and maybe a video about it also. So I hope that, yes, we will have something. But I think, this idea of gratitude is a great idea. I think if we can go ahead and we can, create maybe within the shul a platform of gratitude where everybody says, you know what, for the next year, we're going to try to be grateful for things. And whatever it might be, I can't tell you what to be grateful for in your life. I know what I'm grateful for in my life. And even that, I once sat down, and I said to, I was in camp, I said to the girls when I was leaving camp 2 years ago, not this summer, summer before, can you write down 10 or 20 things you're grateful for? Many girls struggled to write down 10 or 20 things. And I said to them, look, I'll show you 20 things. I'll show you 10 things very quickly. They say, yeah, go ahead. I said, look, I got 10 fingers. Each one of them is something to be grateful for. But they just look at it as, well, I got a hand. Yeah, no. You got a hand that's got all the joints, that's got all the fingernails, that moves, all that. If you split it down, when you break it down, your hand is actually a million different miracles that you can be grateful for. And
I think the message tonight is that sometimes we unfortunately learn in life to be grateful for the things that we don't have because they're taken away from us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just as the guy that was crying about his kids going back to school and was crying about the great time that he spent with them, you don't need to let it be taken away from you. Correct. You just need to find a way to incorporate that gratitude and that feeling and to know that you shouldn't take it for granted. And that it's there every day for you to take advantage of if you want to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's what we need. I think if we want to go ahead and we say, well, what's the I don't know what the Jewish equivalent of the gym is going to be really for next year. If you think about it, what do you want to do? I don't know. Some people don't even want to lose weight. They get to New Year's and they say, you know what, I'm trim enough as is. I don't need to be losing any weight. Fine. But there is something else that you'll need to do. Nobody's going to get to New Year's and say, you know what, and that's an important point. Nobody's going to get to New Year's and say, you know what, I'm perfect. There's actually nothing really I need to work on. I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice girl. I help everybody. I give charity. There's really very little that can be done to improve upon the version of me that exists at the moment. So if you believe that, then, maybe speak to your wife and she'll teach you one or two things that you'll need to know about how you can improve upon yourself. I'm sure they got a list of things.
If you are trying to trick me into having a conversation with my wife about things that I need to improve on, first of all, I don't have the time to sit down and listen to 3 days of that. No, my wife's very good at reminding me in bite-sized chunks of tiny things that I need to get better at. I'm not as perfect as I look on here. Clive has said, ask all our shul members to post on the shul Facebook page what they are thankful for. It's an open invitation to everybody. If people can contribute, it'd be interesting to see whether we can keep it going. And it'd be interesting to see how much of the things that we're grateful for we overlap on.
Yeah.
Because
you learn from others people's gratitude. So if you read somebody else's gratitude, he says, I'm grateful for my mind, or I'm grateful for my memory. People don't think about their mind. But I've been, when you go into Heathlands and Nebuch, you see people who have dementia and who don't even respond or barely respond to their name or don't know who you are. And then you say, I still know who I am. But you think, well, that's just basic. Of course I know who I am. That's not basic. That's not to be taken for granted. For so many people, it's not basic anymore, and we see it more and more. So we really have that much to be grateful for in our lives, and if we can make it part, and I think this is what you need to do, is you need to make it part of something. And what I would say, and maybe we'll finish with this, is that the best way really to be able to make this part of your life is, many people say, is attaching it to another routine. So, for example, let's say you wake up every morning and you have coffee for 10 minutes in the morning. Whilst you have coffee, if you make it, when I have coffee, I do my gratitude thing, and you make that part, you're not going to not have coffee every morning. You will have coffee every single morning, no matter what happens. So all you need to do is incorporate your gratitude thing with your coffee. And as soon as you say, part of having coffee is having gratitude, it becomes part of your day, and you do it again and again. And once you do it again and again, and it becomes part of what you do every single day, after 3 months, it's coffee and gratitude. That's what we have every single day. And I think that's what we need to do. Find those things, maybe the positive things that you want to do, as opposed to a lot of people are focusing on the negative. And I think when you focus on the negative, you get very, very sort of pulled down by it. I'm not really a good person. But when you focus on the positive, it has a positive effect on you, and it has a positive effect on other people. So focus on that positive and say, you know what? I am a positive person. I can be a much more positive person, and I will take that positivity, and what I will do with it is I will connect it to something else and make it part of the way I function every single day. And if you can take that positivity, whether it's being thankful, whether it's doing an extra chesed, a kindness every day, whether it's smiling at one person every single day, whoever it might be, even if it's your spouse, and they don't deserve the smile at that point. Make it part of who you are every single day. And you'll see, if you make it part of who you are and make it part of your routine, after a certain amount of time, you look back and you say to yourself, how could I have ever lived without doing that? How could I have lived 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 80 years, however long it is, without being grateful for that? So make it part of what you want to do. Make it part of what you're going to do this year as part of your gym. And if you create your gym routine and you do it right, this year will be different. It will be different. And you won't turn around in Cheshvan or Kislev and say, you know what, I've stopped going to the gym. Because you'll have something tangible. Create something tangible that you can look at as well. And you'll have something tangible, like that digital footprint on Facebook. Or you'll have a little notebook or whatever it is every day of what you're grateful for. Create that, and you'll be happy with it, and you'll keep it going.
Fantastic. I can't think of a better sentiments to end on. Echoed by Sheila. Be grateful for what you have. Is your cup half empty or half full?
So absolutely.
And it's up to you which way you look at that. Thank you very much, Rabbi. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for those who joined us. Appreciate your time. And we look forward to seeing you maybe next week. We'll see. We'll discuss what we have for next week.
No problem. All right. Take care.
Bye.